Today I'm going to show you how to create a Power Virtual Agent chatbot that will take users' input and check the live flight details via a third-party API connector. When the response is returned, we will display the information to the end user via the adaptive card. There are 4 components today, and let's get started. First, let's go to Power Virtual Agent portal and then create a preview bot. Here I create the name of the bot and select create. Now once the bot is created, let's click on test bot and edit the topics. First, we switch off the lesson topics and start a new topic. We call it check flights. This topic will take users' input and check the live flight details. Now I just use very simple trigger phrases here. Now let's ask a user to provide their flight details. So we start with a question. Please provide your flight numbers, such as CX105. And we're going to take user's entire response and pass it back to the Power Automate to check. Now let's call this variable var flight number, and that will store user's response for the flight information. Next, we'll call action to the Power Automate. As you can see here, you have the Power Virtual Agent at input and output. In between, we will add a step here. So basically, we're gonna use a third-party API connector called AviationStack. We will call that within the Power Automate to check the flight details. Now you can get a free API key from the AviationStack website. Once you sign up, go to your profile, you should be able to see your API access key. You need to copy that. Back in the Power Automate, you will add AviationStack connector and select action called Get Airline. Now I've already added here, so you do not see me putting the API key. But if you're doing this for the first time, you will need to provide that. Now we need to figure out where do you pass the flight details. You can see there is a flight number and a flight IATA number. In the aviation industry, the flight number is actually called flight IATA, which is the one we are familiar with. If you have a look at this API response example on their documentation website, you can see the flight number normally we refer to is actually the IATA field. And if you just use the flight number, it's just numeric numbers. So we will not change this term by confusing the user. When we ask the question in the bot, we will still ask for a flight number, but just remember in the API, make sure you pass that information and store into the flight IATA field. Here is an example of the response that's got returned from their API. You can see the information we need, such as the flight detail status, the date, departure airport name, the short form of the name, also the scheduled and estimated time for departure and arrival. And those are the information we will need to pass it from the API response, store them in the variables, and pass it back to the Power Virtual Agent for the adaptive card. I will explain later how you get this formula going, but basically on the left side is a name, which you can call it whatever you want, and on the right is expression you're going to use in the Power FX. Now first, in the trigger, we're gonna create a flight number as input. Then in the last step where we're gonna return all these data back to the Power Virtual Agent, you're gonna use the formula provided. Now we'll give it a name, flight date, and then we'll go to the expression to type the formula. Now you can see if I just use the dynamic content, you'll get errors saying action cannot be inside a for each. Now this is a problem that we were facing if we just select the dynamic content. That is why we're using the PowerFX expressions. You can see all these data are sitting in the array, and we just want a unique value to be returned. We do not need it to be in a array in a for each loop. So basically, you're gonna use the body. If you scroll down here on the expression, under the referencing function, we're gonna use the body, and in the bracket, we will use the name of the last step, which is get flights. Let's look back on our documentations. For example, for the flight status, okay, skip too fast here. You're gonna copy the expression again. Basically, the data 0 means we just need to pick the unique value from the array, and this is how we avoid for each loop. Now I will paste a link in the description below how I learned this, but this is the formula you're gonna use. And when you do the other variables, you can see I had data dot, the name of the next array, arrival, then you had dot airport or dot departure. So these are the variables we're going to return back to the Power Virtual Agent. Okay. So it's a very simple flow that will be called from Power Virtual Agent. As you can see in the input, we're going to pass the flight number from the Power Virtual Agent to the flow, and we'll use that same variable in this get flights API. We're going to leave it in the flight IATA field. Remember the difference between flight number and the flight IATA? Okay. And then once the API response is returned, we're going to handpick these variables all down the expression. We're going to take these and return them back to the Power Virtual Agent. And these variables will be used to create our information card. Okay, so we click down back in the Power Virtual Agent. We'll wait for our flow to come up. We're gonna select one called test flight. You can ignore the other one, that's the one I did previously when I did testing. Okay, so first in actions, you can see the flight number variable that we created in the Power Automate flow. Now we're gonna take this and match the one from the user input, which is called the var flight number. Okay. So when user type the flight number, it will be stored into the var flight number variable in the Power Virtual Agent. Then this variable will be passed to the Power Automate to match another variable called flight number. And then you can see all these return variables from Power Automate flows. And we can start use this variable to assemble our adaptive cards to display the information we want. Next, we'll add another step. We'll click on send a message, and we're gonna use this new feature called adaptive card in the Power Virtual Agent. Some of you might already familiar with adaptive card from the other Microsoft products. Here I'm just going to quickly show you how I got a template and then modify to suit our need. So I left a message there, and then in the media you can see the sample JSON code. First, let's go to adaptivecard.io to pick a template we like. I select flight update, then I select try it yourself. So this template looks like very close to what we need, and you can see it has a lot of information, over 250 lines of code. But we don't need everything in this card. For example, we don't need these passenger informations, so we can delete that later on. Now just have a quick look on the structure of the card. You can see there are 4 column sets represent the 4 area on the card. So that's the first column set, which has the icon on the left and the flight status on the right. And then when you click on the second column set, that's the middle part, which has the passenger's information. So let's remove that. And this column set is the flight information and also the airport information. So we have kept 3 columns, and you can see the code number has been reduced. So it's got updated when we remove the other columns. So this looks pretty good. Now remember, also change the target version of the card to 1.3 because it says for the bot framework it does not support the new 1.5. Okay, let's do a slight change on the card. We'll move the flight number to the top column. I don't need to airplane logo. We'll move the depart to the left. So for the middle column, we only need the left depart and arrive on the right. Let's go to the layout and make it to the left. Align to the left. Okay, we can delete the middle column. That looks good. Okay, that looks really good. So we have a adaptive card with 3 area, 3 columns, has all the information we need. And we already had variables to corresponding to these fields. Okay, so if we are happy with this adaptive card, so let's look at the code, and we can copy the card payload. They will grab all this code. Let's go back to the Power Virtual Agent. Open this card content. Delete the existing sample, copy them, and then change from JSON to formula. Remember, you have to copy paste first and then change from JSON to formula, otherwise it will error out. Okay. Now you see the output has a green tick, which it likes it. What we're gonna do next is to change these hard-coded value from the sample and replace with our variables. Okay, so we've already got all the variables back. This FFO that looks like that is the airport short. That's the arrival airport's short name and arrival airport's full name. Right. And that's the departure airport's full name and departure airport's short name. Okay, so make sure you grab the correct variable. First, we will delete this one. That's the arrival airport's full name. Coming back to our notes. We already picked the design, we modified the template, we got the code. Now we just need to change the hard-coded value to the variables we already prepared that's been returned from Power Automate. Seems like I'm repeating myself here. Okay, So to update the value from this hard-coded content to the variable, let's delete the double quote SFO. So remember, this is the arrival airport short name. So we're going to open bracket topic, then we're going to do a dot and pick up the variable we created. So it looks like automatically see all the variables we have. This is the arrival airport code, close bracket. This is the arrival airport full name. We delete all that. Open bracket, topic dot arrival airport full name. That's the name. Okay, so this is how you're replacing the hard-coded value with the variables returned from the Power Automate. Okay, now let's do the departure airport. Topic dot departure airport code, open bracket, close bracket. This is the full name of the departure airport. So make sure you keep the comma and delete the double quote. We do open bracket topic dot departure airport name. Okay, I'm just gonna fast forward and quickly do all the rest. Got the flight status, flight numbers, and update all the information we will need for our adaptive card. Okay, looks like we are done here. So here I just explained what the format look like to use PowerFX within your adaptive card. Okay, make sure you're gonna paste your code to the JSON first and then change from JSON to edit formula. Okay, now let's test the chatbot. We'll type check flight status. It asks us to provide a flight number. We type the flight number, which is the IATA code, and it got returned. If we have a look at Power Automate, you can see this flow has been run. It received flight information back from the AviationStack API. These are all the details. And we pass that back to the Power Virtual Agent using the variables. And if we look back here, you can see this is the code for the adaptive card. We have the flight information here, the flight status, when was it departed, and when was it arrived. And notice this time is a bit funny. That's because this is how it was returned from the API response. It arrived at 12:25 and is not adjusted. It is not adjusted by the UTC, and it's a bit hard to read. Okay, let's change the code so it will reflect a local time for Australia. So if you look at API response, this is how it was returned from the AviationStack API, and this is how we pass it on back to our Power Virtual Agent. Remember, it was done by the PowerFX formula. So let's modify the formula to adjust to the local time. So to do that, let's select the formula here. So notice how we only did departure to estimated. This will just return the whole string without modifying it from the API response. And to change it to the local time, you're going to use the format datetime functions. Well, and I got this from ChatGPT. So if any of you who are not doing ChatGPT, when you learn code, I strongly recommend you to use that. It helped me so much when I'm learning any language in the codings. Okay, so just copy that and we'll update the estimated and arrival time and run it again. You can see the time has now changed to how Australian reads it, the date, the month, year, and the time. Looks much better. Okay. I hope everyone has learned as much as I did when I was doing this video. You can see the estimated time here and the flight number there. Actually, that was a different flight number I was checking. CX5. So let's try another one. So that's the QF487 that's just arrived. And we can check the power automate, the flow has completed. It has landed from Sydney to Melbourne, and the time returned is in Australian format. .47, it returned the scheduled times for some reason, so it looks like even when we used estimated time in the formula, it still returned as the scheduled time from the AviationStack API response. So we're using the basic free version, so there might be some problem there. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it can be fast, sometimes it's slow, sometimes just times out because in between every steps there are 180-second limit. So if the API does not return response fast enough, your flow will die and your Power Virtual Agent will not return adaptive card to the end users. Okay, so I'm sorry about the video. I'm just voice over on a very heavily edited videos, but I hope you learned as much as I did. Thank you very much.